Good morning, Pete here from A Bit Twisted. So I'm going to do a quick video on spinning my Romney fleece that I bought, and I've washed about half of it and got it all dried. There is a little tiny bit of lanolin left in the wool, so it is what it is. I'll have to wash it after I'm done making the yarn. So that's okay, because the results have been excellent. So what I have is a whole bunch of Romney wool. I've got all these nice locks that I want to comb. So I'm going to be making some combed top. So I separated a lot of these locks out prior to washing to make it easier to get them after everything's been washed. So some of them kind of stick back together again, but nothing bad. This sheep was not a covered sheep, but everything was still, this is actually one of the cleanest fleeces that I've ever purchased. And so I'm quite pleased with what I have. And for the price, it was perfect. So you can see on some of these locks here, the very tips are still really tight. And the problem is there can be a lot of dirt hidden inside the tips of these even after you've washed them. So in the process of combing, we'll open all that stuff up and allow you to comb out all that dirt that's still in there. And believe me, it holds a lot more than you might think. So when you're getting ready to comb to make your comb top, you'll want to have something on your lap to catch the dirt. So what I tend to do is I like to open these locks up. So I use the tips of my combs and hold on tight to the base, and then go in and open up the base. And that opens them up, so it still leaves the middle kind of locked. And then what I do is I'll grab this and I'll just set it right on my comb. And I'll take my next one, open up the base, open up the tips, and if you're watching carefully, if the camera will pick it up, it was knocking a little bit of dirt out even there. And then I just and I'll load my comb up just like that. And I'll just continue until I have enough on my comb to comb this out. And this just helps in the combing process. It makes it a little quicker. And so let's get this really nice lock here. So I wash with Mrs. Meyer's Clean Day hand soap. or hand soap wash, whatever you want to call it. And works out good. This time I did 2 super hot washes with soap, and then a whole bunch of rinsing to get everything out, but it still was not enough to get every last bit of lanolin out. So I think I just had too much at a time that I was trying to wash. So when you're washing, don't do too much at a time. Just do some. Okay, get these sort of opened up. Using a hand carder can open these up really well. I just left it on the other side of the room, so that's why I'm not using that at the moment. But this will work, as you can see, just fine. And it'll leave a little bit of waste, but just a little. And then I'll load that up. Excuse me. Let's see here. Let's get another couple more locks on here real quick. So watching from the first person point of view is kind of neat. I have a vest holder for my camera, and just wraps around the upper body, and allows me to see the camera, allows me to see where I'm at, and also gives you a view, not exactly of my eye view, but my chest view of the process here. So anyway, so now we have this all loaded up, and I loaded up tips out, cut side on the back side. I do that for a reason, and then I just take the waste and toss that on the floor, and then I just start combing it out. So the first combing might just grab some and just pull the whole big chunk, but that's okay. Since it's already been pre-opened anyway, that's kind of what happens. And it just makes it a little easier. And I tend to pull. When I pull, there's static and it just kind of fluffs up, but as I'm pulling it, then I'll drag it across my pants, and it'll flatten this area out like that. And then each time it just grabs a little bit. And yes, I aim this towards me, but I kind of pull away to the side. And here you won't see all the dirt falling because I don't have, it's just going on the carpet. And so we'll just have to vacuum later. And by pre-opening, also leaves less. The other nice thing I like about Romney is like a sheep that has a single length coat. It's not like there's multiple, like an outer coat and an undercoat, at least that I'm aware of, because almost everything comes off the comb. So this was kind of a knot at the end here. So I'm not worried about that, but I'll save it because we can use that for carding our waste. So now I have all the tips on this side and the cut end on this side. And now I'm going to go through and do this one more time. And this time I'm just going to carefully pull And again, this comes out really nice. And if it's kind of stiff pulling it out, then I bring the tines to the back side and I just kind of lift it up a little bit so there's not so much pressure on the back side hairs there. So they'll easily slide off. So as you do this, the hairs on this side kind of fold over, and that's what holds it. But they're on loose enough to where they just slide. When you get ready to diz or draft this stuff off the combs. And I go from back and forth, side to side. Pull all this stuff off. Now this will separate the long and the short fibers, but there's not a ton of short fibers like with my Jacob. My Jacob, I have all kinds of short fibers, so I get about half, almost half and half of longer to diz off, and just this little tiny little bit of extra there. So now, since this is already really clean and it's just a nice bit here, I'll open up the back again here, and then I'm just going to grab a little bit. I'm going to pull. So I just like to hand this off, and I just grab a little bit, grab and twist just a tiny bit so it'll grab the next bit, and then I just diz this right off. That's the goal here. And because I can actually put a whole lot on this thing, I can make a fairly large comb top roving off of each combing here. I don't have anything set up on the table that holds the combs, even though I have a really big wide one for that purpose. It would be stationary on the table, which I should use to finish this job. But anyway, and this way I'm pulling the tips, pulling them out. And when I spin, I also pull from the tips. You can kind of see. And the hair just kind of undoes itself from around the back side. So now I'm done. Now it's just got this little tiny bit of waste. So mostly it's done. Okay, so now we're going to go back here. So now what I do is I take this and give it a little twist to get it started, and just kind of roll it up with a slight little twist in my hand. And then I'll just pull the end up through here. And this is the end that I actually pull from, so I'll push it back down through when I get ready to spin with it. So this is a comb top roving, nice little fluffy ball, and that'll just sit nicely in the basket. It's very lightweight. And then here, this is what I've been spinning since last night, using my original spinning wheel that I purchased, double drive, and I'm using the original whirl, which is a large one and a small one, and there's not a lot of difference between the two on these whirls here. So I like using the larger one with this wool. And I already have some roving here that I've been spinning. And so you'll take that, and I can pull on my bobbin so there's not too much tension. But when I let it take it, it'll take it without it just totally kinking up. So I have just enough tension on it. And every once in a while I give just a tiny bit more. And I let my wheel go to its downmost position. If I want to stop it. And I have my yarn gauge. And I make sure it fits in the uppermost lace weight slot. I usually just leave that laying on my lap. So as I spin, whilst I'm spinning, grab it, set it on there. If it fits, I'm good. And I'm still within my size range. And this is for singles. So my plied will be thicker, usually in the light fingering weight, depending on how fluffy, maybe into the sport weight, but just barely. But this is more the nice fingering weight, good for making socks, good for fabric, good for the loom. Some people like this kind of stuff for other projects as well, knitting, things like that, but it is a very fine yarn. And again, I'll just drop it down there just real quick, just to see where I'm at. And then I'll show you another thing here in just a second. So I'm going to change my hooks here. Now, as you can see, I have hooks on both sides on the upside. I do not have any hooks on the back side. That's how this wheel came. We did replace these hooks with more modern hooks, but they're newer and bigger, but similar to the old style antiques. And that was something I requested, and they turned out great. Love them. So I can have thicker yarn because I have a fairly large orifice opening, so I can do some thick yarn if I want, but I like doing the thin anyway. So these are offset from each other over here. So I have a very fine control of my bobbin, but I find that if I don't change quick enough, then some of the yarn gets a little bit loose. So here I'm going to change over. So now I have 3 hooks on this side. Then I'll go back to 3 on this side, then 2, 2, 1, and 1. And typically I don't do the last one because it's already up against the bobbin anyway. And then I'll move everything back and start back in the furthest most hook and work my way back forward again. This is what I do. So when I start again, once I'm done here, I'll go back to this one and back and forth, back and forth. So I have to use my hand to start the wheel. Just the way the thing is designed. And this stuff spins just super, super nice, especially really thin. Could probably even do some long draw. So let me move this bag that's behind me. Had my bag of mohair behind there, and it was impeding. Check it, make sure I'm still good. And that, by checking it and having it there, you have a way to keep yourself consistent so you're not just relying on eyeballs. Because I found that if I just rely on my eyeballs, my yarn gets thicker as I go. It never gets too thick, but it still gets thicker than when I started. And so this lace weight size is what I wanted from the start, and that's what I've been spinning. And then when I'm done, just before I finish filling the bobbin to not quite full, I will take it off and I'll split it between 2 bobbins, and then I'll ply it back on. And should have a good couple hundred yards worth of finished because of the diameter size of this stuff here. So this is kind of a long video, 20 minutes or so, that kind of shows a process for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask on the video, or you can actually go and look in the About section of the YouTube channel, and I do have my email available there to email me questions if you have questions. I'll leave a link to my Facebook page too if you want. But this is what I do. So this is going to go on the loom when I'm done with this one, just the one. And we're going to see what the fabric looks like in just a nice thin piece of cloth with this Romney that'll be before I put it on the big loom. So the stuff spins up pretty quick. I have my Jensen wheel tied up right now at the moment with the flax. And I only have one bobbin, so I can't take it off and do this. I'd rather spin this on the Jensen wheel because I can do it faster. And the Jensen wheel, I have multiple hooks on it too. They're pretty closely laid out, so I'd still have a good bobbin with that. But just hold it lightly. Make sure you can pull back, like I always let everybody know for tension. Too much tension, it's going to pull it out of your hands, going to pull it apart. And you'll understand when you give it too much tension. You'll figure that one out real quick. So now I'm going to change hooks again. Put that at the bottom. So now I'm going to go to 3. This side. Check again. Yep. Oh, loosely fit in that slot. I don't want it to be tightly fit in the slot. If it starts to get a little tightly fit in the slot, I slack back off and thin it up a little bit. So it's very hard to tell if I've gotten too thick or too thin. And if I get too thin, I just break it and re-splice it. So I don't want thin. I'd rather have a little bit thick spot than a thin spot. And this wool is a little bit slicker, more like mohair than regular wool, but still has wool-like properties. So it was very interesting fiber to work with and learn. So anyway, so that's where I'm at here. Check one more time. That looks good. And now we're going to go to 2. So my spinning wheel is sunk into the carpet a little bit, so the footman's touching the carpet. That's what's making that extra loud treadling noise. I can kind of do a semi-draw from this. Don't want to go too much because I want to keep that good control for good thin size. And have better control over it. But regardless, it all spins up pretty quick. So I could probably use just a little tiny bit more tension. A little bit more tension also puts a little more tension on the bobbin and keeps things a little bit tighter on the bobbin and not get loose. I'm still good there. So I'm going to leave it here, guys, everybody, and we'll be back when I get ready to apply this stuff. And right now we're having a nice light rain outside. Makes for a nice morning. and we will talk to y'all later. And there is the little bit of sample on what this yarn would look like.